And as soon as I can, I'm going to play this intro, and then we will get right into it, my dudes. And intro in 3, 2, 1.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to you live from the world-famous AfterBuzz TV studios in sunny Los Angeles, California. And have we got a show for you? We are bringing back the Hall of Fame wish list bracketology style. But before we talk all about that, let me introduce the amazing man I get to chat with today. Ladies and gentlemen, he is... Do we call him the wrestling professor?
The professor of wrestling?
Professor
perhaps?
of wrestling, Steve Kaufmann.
Whew, thank you. I'm ready for everything now that I've had that intro. And air horns. The air horns were what we were missing, then we have them.
And speaking of those air horns, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the man in the booth tonight. Let's go ahead and hear it for Vito.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the game. So glad to be back with you, gentlemen.
I am so excited for this already. I am your benevolent host, Fancy Jack Farmer, here to moderate what is sure to be quite the fun show. What we're doing today, if this is your first episode watching, what we do is we take a group of people that we wish were in the Hall of Fame, we put them in a bracket, and we battle them all out till we get down to number one, who we wish would be in the Hall of Fame. Today's theme is the women of wrestling. We're going to go ahead and find out who the number one female is that should be going into the Hall of Fame.
The number one wish
the number
for
one
the WWE Hall of Fame, that is a woman.
That is a woman.
That is not already in.
It will be decided today. Now, as you alluded to, Steve, that means who's not already in, who's not currently active. We cut those people away, and we came down with 16 best women to see battle it out for the right to be picked. More importantly than to be in the Hall of Fame, but to be the AfterBuzz TV wish to be in the Hall of Fame. This is a huge honor.
This is the honor among honors. I feel whoever wins this may value it and treasure it more than actually going into the WWE Hall of Fame, if they ever do.
Without doubt.
This is the higher honor.
Doubt.
We have a broom closet. We can call that the AfterBuzz TV Wrestling Hall of Fame. And we can have a physical, actual Hall of Fame. Well, it won't be a broom closet anymore. It'll be the Hall of Fame.
Someone move that mop. I want to see my Hall of Fame trophy.
Well, no, but Moppy will be there because Perry Saturn first ballot into the AfterBuzz TV Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Saturn would be a perfect first person into the AfterBuzz Hall of Fame. So let's do it. Let's just get started.
Gentlemen, are you ready for your first round?
Yes.
Gentlemen, the first round is Chyna versus Maryse.
Ooh, this is an interesting one because Chyna's technically already in as a part of DX, but she's not individually. Right off the bat, how do you feel about this matchup?
I think Chyna as a 1 seed is perfect. I think Maryse as a 16 seed is also perfect. She belongs on this list. She also belongs with having a real rough matchup up top. Already a Hall of Famer, Chyna. Already accolade-wise, a solo Hall of Fame career. If Chyna were a man, that would be a Hall of Fame worthy career.
Yes,
on its own.
Yes,
especially for all the women's title. No, but I don't see Maryse getting out of this matchup. Is where I'm at.
I think with Maryse, what I like about her being here, she won the Divas Championship a couple times. She was a manager for a bit. But this is a real test on what you do outside of the ring and how it matters. Because obviously she has Ms. and Mrs., which has done a number of seasons now. And so she's got a little bit of that celebrity clout. But I agree. I think Chyna as a number 1 seed is the exact right pick here. And, I mean, the fact that she has not 1, but 2 Intercontinental title reigns, I think locks it up for me.
2 Intercontinental title reigns already in the Hall of Fame. I do think practicality-wise, which we don't worry about here, right? It's a wish show. Yeah. Practicality-wise, it would be very difficult to induct her solo with her not being with us.
Right.
And that is practicality-wise something we don't have to worry about. So Chyna's my pick.
So, gentlemen, your choice for this bracket is Chyna. Moving on.
Moving on.
Chyna moving on.
Maybe
Maybe
round,
next year, Maryse.
we are getting Molly Holly versus Jazz.
This is a 9-8 seed right here.
This is a tough one for me because I feel like they both belong on this list for the same reason, and that's because they were superior in the ring than many of their contemporaries at a time when there wasn't a lot of women who were building their career off of being good in the ring at the time.
I had to double check when Molly Holly wound up on earlier versions of this list that I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be the historian here and like show them up. Because I remember Molly Holly on a Hall of Fame stage. She was inducting someone else. Molly Holly is somehow not in the WWE Hall of Fame.
To me, that's shocking. I don't understand why she's not. She seems like she checks every single box, including being someone, inducting Beth Phoenix into the Hall of Fame. She, which fair credit you reminded me of later. I don't want to act like I just knew that off the top of my head.
You knew she wasn't in the Hall of Fame.
But she, I mean, she seems like everything that the WWE would want in a Hall of Famer, especially her time as Miss Madness in WCW.
Wow. That's a pull. That is a pull from a WCW household, is what that was.
That was definitely.
Also a one-time hardcore champion, two-time women's champion. On accolades, I'm wondering on accolades if Jazz has her beat. I feel like Jazz has been more places and done more things.
That's the thing with Jazz is she's a two-time women's champion, and she did so much stuff other places. Mm-hmm. I think is one of the things where it might get a little muddied on how much of her time was actual WWE, WWF time, and how much of it was actually outside of that. But this is a tough matchup for me because, again, they're two people who I would put in for the same reason.
Yeah. I would say if I were the WWE Hall of Fame, Molly Holly has to get the edge here because all of her accolades, the vast majority, like 80 or 90% of her accolades are from the WWE. Whereas Jazz, who has more accolades, the majority of them are not from the WWE. And I would also argue Jazz is still fairly active. I know the word retirement has come up recently.
Right.
But the NWA women's title that is held by Thunder Rosa, and I also got to hold it briefly when I met Thunder Rosa, was held to women before that by Jazz.
Right.
So Jazz is fairly more active than Molly Holly.
This is a very, when it comes to the activity thing, this is definitely kind of a gray area because I don't believe she's currently wrestling, but I believe she was currently wrestling very recently. And
no one beat her for the NWA Women's title.
Yeah, she could
it was
very
vacant.
well be back.
It was vacant, and I want to say Allison Kay beat someone else or won a tournament for it.
Gentlemen, it is time for your choice. Make your vote. Is it Molly Holly or Jazz Jack?
I'm gonna go Molly Holly here.
Only because it's the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm gonna say Molly Holly.
Yeah, I agree.
Our winner is Molly Holly. And our next round will be Michelle Mccool versus Paige.
I'm gonna watch what I say here because I don't want to take her. I don't want to take her calling me out on Twitter.
Yeah, I was about to say you gotta be careful when you invoke any ire from Michelle Mccool.
But Paige, an interesting choice for this bracket because Paige, fairly active in the sense that Edge was inactive but is active now. So I think it's a fair choice. On accolades, and anything you could judge these two on, I think Paige gets the edge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I mean, Michelle Mccool to me, she won a lot of titles. But to me, she seemed very much like she was the face of the women's division for some time. And I'm sure you could say the same thing about Paige. But I don't know. I think when I look and doing my research, I looked up Michelle Mccool, two-time Divas champ, a two-time women's champion, and also as she was with Le Cool for a long time. Like I said, I felt like that was sort of the face of the women's division for a long time.
Also, Slammy Award winning Diva of the Year in 2010.
Winning this tournament would be the highest accolade.
Second
Slammy
highest.
Award.
She's actually a two-time Slammy Award winner. She also won the Knucklehead Moment of the Year because it's to promote Knucklehead the movie.
The knucklehead.
Big Show, which I caught on Netflix back when Netflix had to send you DVDs.
Well, is that not worth putting her forward being the knucklehead of the year?
She was also Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Woman of the Year in 2010. She was #1 in the PWI Female 50. She was a hell of an athlete. I would argue it's unfortunate that she peaked she peaked in the business right before there was a women's revolution.
Yes.
Right before Charlotte Flair was main eventing WrestleMania. That I think sometimes life is about passing ships. And I think it's fair. It would be fair to give her the Hall of Fame for that alone. Because by clearing that path, you allow for someone like Charlotte Flair. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Up against Paige, I think Paige was able to take that ball and really run with it until a doctor literally told her to stop.
That's fair. I think in Paige's court, too, not for nothing, they made a movie about her life, which means something. So I think both of these are definitely qualified to be on here.
Would you like to make your vote, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Get ready for your vote. It is between Michelle Mccool and Paige. Jack.
I'm going to go Michelle Mccool.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Michelle Mccool did a lot for the women's division, and without her kind of holding it up for the year she was there, I think we would have a different women's division today.
And Steve Kaufmann.
I'm going to go with Paige. Just as on paper, there's way too much to overcome.
We are at a divide. I will be the decider. Your winner for today is Michelle Mccool for the third round. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The next round we move on will be Miss Elizabeth versus Leilani Kai.
This one's going back.
This is
This one is definitely going back. I'm going to be honest here. Leilani Kai is someone I know primarily through looking back. I don't really know her as someone actually like watching a whole lot of her actual matches, so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here. But I do know she was a big part of women's wrestling. I was a huge fan of Miss Elizabeth, though. So there's honestly going to be a lot of personal bias in this, but it's a wish list. So
I think this is the hardest matchup of the bracket. There, I said it, because I think Leilani Kai as a women's wrestler has all of the accolades and is already in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2016. That's a thing.
Oh, I thought you were saying WWE.
No.
Okay.
Leilani Kai, I think on in-ring bell-to-bell work, absolutely 100% deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame, and to a certain extent is a snub.
Yeah.
But that's not the show we do today.
Right.
That's not the show we're doing today.
Right.
Miss Elizabeth was with the Macho Man Randy Savage and really was able to get that act over and to get other acts around that act over in a way that truly elevated the entire business of professional wrestling.
Yes.
That it's the hardest thing. It's the hardest pick'em for me.
What makes it so hard too is that Miss Elizabeth doesn't have any wrestling accolades. It's purely as a manager.
Yes.
Or purely as someone on the outside, but her outside presence was so big in so many moments, whether it be Mega Power stuff, whether it be Four Horsemen stuff, whether it be NWO stuff. I mean, going through and just looking at the people she's managed and the things she's been a part of, she has been such a big player in all things wrestling for decades.
Mm-hmm. Specifically the NWO, Lex Luger, Sting, Ric Flair, Four Horsemen. Sapphire is in there, Dusty Rhodes, Bruce
30
Beefcake,
seconds,
Hulk
gentlemen.
Hogan, Mega Powers, Randy Savage. I honestly, we could talk this one out for a very long time.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm honestly going to flip a coin. They're both equal.
Yeah. I'm ready to vote, I think.
Gentlemen, your vote between Miss Elizabeth and Leilani Kai. This time we will start with Steve. Steve.
All right.
What is your vote?
Leilani Kai is heads.
Leilani Kai.
I thought Google would do it for me already. Just flip a coin. It is heads. Leilani Kai.
Leilani Kai for Steve Kaufmann. Jack Farmer.
You know, I think from a wrestling standpoint, that's probably the right answer, but I've always loved Miss Elizabeth. I think she's a big part of wrestling. I'm going to say Miss Elizabeth.
Gentlemen, we have another tie. But the winner is as declared by me, the Game Master. Miss Leilani Kai!
Oh,
Deception!
She literally won by a coin flip. No offense to her.
Yeah.
The next setup is Stacy Keibler versus Victoria.
This is an interesting one. I was a fan of Stacy Keibler back when she was a WCW Nitro girl, and probably, I would say one of the few that went on as far as a wrestling valet to have some fame outside of the wrestling world. Victoria, though, I always thought was one of the first real legit women wrestlers out there. So I always had a lot of time for Victoria.
So, yeah, this is difficult, similar to Miss Elizabeth. That Stacy Keibler was around and influential to a lot of very important elements in pro wrestling, whereas Lisa Marie Verone, or pretty sure that's how you pronounce that, Victoria has way more accolades in ring in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
That I, she was Woman of the Year in 2004. And then in 2009, PWI put out a top 15. She was number 5 there. Yeah. Bell to bell, she is a wrestler's wrestler, 2-time WWE Women's Champion. There was a knockout tag team champion in TNA. Is Wikipedia lying to me? It was her and Brooke Tessmaster? Okay.
I've never, ever seen Wikipedia be wrong.
5-time women's knockout championship. If you want to influence how this show goes, edit Wikipedia while we're doing it.
Right. Yeah, if you want to see your person win, run on Wikipedia right now.
Just make her number 1.
Do not run on Wikipedia right now.
Just make her number 1 in the top 50. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of Stacy Keibler's fame and things that we look back on is a lot of what she did post wrestling as opposed to
30 seconds,
when she was
gentlemen.
actually wrestling. So I'm just gonna say, like I said, I have a ton of time for Victoria. I was a huge fan of Victoria. I guess I still am. I'm gonna pick Victoria here.
Our vote for Jack is Victoria Steve Kaufmann. Who is your vote?
In the interest of fairness. I picked Leilani Kai over Miss Elizabeth because a coin told me to. But the other reasoning is that Leilani Kai in ring was equal to Miss Elizabeth. I would argue Stacy Keibler outside the ring is equal to Victoria in the ring. So in the interest of fairness, I will pick Stacy Keibler to be even-handed.
It is yet another tie. But
no decisions today.
My decision goes to Victoria. Gentlemen, we are down to our last few for the rounds of the first brackets. Our next is Lilian Garcia versus Sable.
So, Sable, number 3 seed. Another one like Michelle McCool. You have to watch what you say.
Yeah.
There's someone I may be interacting with that may hear my words.
Right.
But I think Sable as a person, wonderful person, as a business person, wonderful business person. In ring, as an overall personality who knew she was over and asked for the money of someone who was over, I appreciate Sable as a business person. On camera, I never got it. I thought Sunny made more sense in every way on camera. That was an authentic person, whereas Sable was a look that they gave a bunch of words to.
I was always a Sunny guy also.
Yeah.
I like Sunny.
I like Sunny too. WWE Hall of Famer Sunny.
But she's already in the Hall of Fame, so she's not on this list.
I know. She's not on this list. Lilian Garcia, friend of AfterBuzz TV here. I've worked with her quite a bit.
Careful what you say.
No, I'll work here. I'll say it's Lilian Garcia and not Barry Sable too much.
I love Lilian Garcia because she was around for so long as well. I thought she was a great ring announcer. But I look back at almost every single Attitude Era video montage has Sable all over it and has tons of her doing things. Now, to her credit, she didn't really have much of a women's division back then to work with, at least not compared to today's standards. I don't think she was the greatest in-ring worker, and I don't think she would say she's the greatest in-ring worker. But I think just as a personality and what she did, she was such a big part of the biggest part of wrestling history, at least in the past some odd years.
Well, she was the number 1 woman in the number 1 promotion while wrestling was as big as it had ever been.
Right.
You cannot discount that. I think if we're judging true merit, I don't know how much of that was her talents
versus
beyond
right place, right time kind of thing.
30 seconds,
not just
gentlemen.
right place, right time. Like I think, and we're just arguing the merit of Sable. Like, and I think because in general we're all, and just in general, if you ever want to talk smack publicly about Sable, just picture Brock Lesnar hearing you, and you're hearing this conversation.
Right. I think she's a wonderful person, Brock. You did very well. I think I'm so happy for you too.
Gentlemen, are we ready for our votes?
I think so.
I think so.
Jack, who is your vote?
I'm going Sable.
We've got one Sable.
I'm going Sable.
And
I'm going Lilian Garcia.
between Sable and Garcia, gentlemen, it is Sable.
Really?
It is Sable.
Really?
I do declare.
Wow.
Game Master declares it.
The next setup, Vickie Guerrero versus Eve Torres.
I'm gonna be mean.
Be mean. Let's hear it. Excuse me? No.
Well, I think Vickie Guerrero as an on-camera personality has done more in the wrestling business and for the wrestling business than Eve Torres has. I'm starting there.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. That's what's interesting about this matchup is I would agree, but it's Eve Torres did a lot. She actually did a lot as a wrestler. It's interesting that she did so much, but I can't help but agree with you. I say excuse me, and everyone knows I'm making a Vickie Guerrero reference, but if I can't think of what I would do, how much I would have to do before, how much would I have to describe Eve Torres before you knew I was talking about Eve Torres?
A lot.
Which, if we're talking about a Hall of Fame, I should know who you are very quickly, right?
And independent of other factors, whereas
30 seconds, gentlemen.
I would say Vickie Guerrero at the beginning of her on-screen career would be known as Eddie Guerrero's wife. But by now, I think Vickie Guerrero is just known as Vickie Guerrero.
Right.
I think on that alone,
which is a massive thing to do and put herself into that position.
I call that the who dat test.
The who dat test. I love the who dat test, but I also love saying "excuse me." It's my favorite thing. So yeah, I mean I think we're ready to vote,
Gentlemen, I will start with Steve Kaufmann. Steve, who is your vote between Vickie Guerrero and Eve Torres?
They're both wonderful. Vickie Guerrero.
Vickie Guerrero and Jack.
I hope Eve gets more credit down the line, but for now, Vickie Guerrero.
Vickie Guerrero is our winner for this round, gentlemen. Moving to our last first bracket round. Gail Kim versus AJ Lee.
Whew. This is a very fascinating matchup for me because I think of AJ Lee as the person that really brought together the diva era versus the women's wrestling era. I mean, some people may say Paige. I think AJ Lee was that person. And Gail Kim, what's fascinating about her is I think any wrestling fan who's a fan of women's wrestling would say Gail Kim is a Hall of Fame type talent, but it was almost completely in a different company. She has the one title reign in WWE, but for the most part, everything else was somewhere else.
But if we're talking pure merit and a wish, I would love for the WWE to acknowledge wrestling as a whole, and they consider those things synonymous. So somebody like Gail Kim, who had great success before ever coming into the WWE, and having great success after leaving the WWE, I would like to think the WWE Hall of Fame is a place for someone like that.
30 seconds, gentlemen.
The reality is that it isn't, and if we're talking pure merit for a WWE Hall of Fame, AJ Lee has this.
Yeah, this is we talk about how this isn't who should actually go in, but it's a wish list. And I really, really, really wish Gail Kim would go in the Hall of Fame. It's just unfortunate that I wish more that AJ Lee would.
Interesting.
I think she deserves. I think Gail Kim absolutely deserves it, but I don't think she deserves it more than AJ Lee.
Gentlemen, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jack Farmer, your vote.
AJ Lee.
AJ Lee and Steve Kaufmann.
Also AJ Lee, and I just want to point out if AJ Lee hadn't stopped when she stopped, she would have an even more similar career to Gail Kim.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
that is two for AJ Lee. That does end our first round picks.
Woo!
And before we move on, it is time for me to let you all know where you can find us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AfterBuzz TV wrestling channel. If you are interested in anything wrestling, in seeing all of these people, in seeing more content, in being heard, make sure to comment down below. Make sure to follow us, to subscribe, to thumbs up that video. And you better make sure to come back for next week because we've got more Hall of Fame wishes. Thank you very much to Jack Farmer, to Steve Kaufmann, to Keven Undergaro, to Maria Menounos, to Flobo Boyce, and I am your game master, Vito Scutti. Now to continue.
This is perfect.
We need to put Vito in the Hall of Fame. Let's wrap it with, Vito, that was great.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, but your first round for the second bracket setup is Chyna versus Molly Holly.
You start this one, Steve. I don't want to.
First off, I just want to point out that Vito is in the AfterBuzz TV Wrestling Hall of Fame because that's where I want to put it.
Hey!
Second off, that room is exactly where I want it to go.
Yeah.
Second, I think Chyna as a 1 seed coming in very strong here. I think this is where Molly Holly goes down. She was an 8 seed. She made it to the 1 seed. This is kind of where the falter happens.
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road, as you could say. I think Molly Holly is fantastic, and I love her to go in. But Chyna, as you had mentioned, we're talking about women that should go in the Hall of Fame. Chyna, as a person, should go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, she did so much stuff. She was in the Rumble, the first woman in the Rumble. She was the first one in the Rumble, right? Yeah. Again, the IC title reigns and the Women's Championship reign, and the fact that she was a part of DX, a Hall of Fame group that revolutionized wrestling in so many ways, Chyna's got to go forward here.
Well, I think we...
Gentlemen, are you ready to vote? I assume so.
Yeah.
Both of your picks are Chyna. Chyna moves on with this. Unfortunately, Molly Holly is now eliminated from the bracket. We move forward to Michelle Mccool versus Leilani.
Two wrestlers.
Leilani finally getting her shot against another wrestler. But this is very much a story of two different eras here. Where before the show, to pull back the curtain, you were talking about how Medusa seemed to have most of her best matches against Leilani Kai.
Yes.
Much in the same way as I compared her to a Triple H, who The Rock had most of his best matches against a Triple H. Stone Cold had most of his best matches against a Triple H. And I've always thought that role is so underappreciated in wrestling. How do you feel?
I feel that. I also think women's wrestling in the time of Leilani Kai, for whatever reason, and you can get into a lot of them, there were not as many women wrestling or women interested in actually wrestling as a profession as there are now, or even as there were in Michelle McCool's day.
30 seconds, gentlemen.
As you said, it's a clash of which style of wrestling, and do you think women's wrestling was stronger under Michelle McCool, or do you think women's wrestling was stronger under Leilani Kai? And I think you just said it, matchup-wise. It was Leilani Kai and Fabulous Moolah. It was Leilani Kai and Medusa. It was Leilani Kai and Cyndi Lauper, and then those were the four.
Yeah.
That was the women's division at that time. But
Absolutely.
I think, in general, you have to give more strength for... Michelle McCool was able to rise above a higher field. A larger field. It was a larger field, and I vote Michelle McCool.
Interesting. I was going to say I love Michelle McCool and all she's done, but I think I'm going to go Leilani Kai.
Really?
Yeah, I think the history and what she added is underrated, but tell us, Vito, how does this go?
Gentlemen, we have another split vote. From the arguments that you have presented to me, my choice continues with Michelle McCool. Michelle McCool continues on, and Leilani Kai, though legendary, is off of our bracket. Our next round, Victoria versus Sable.
Wow.
This is a doozy. We're not supposed to have these tough ones this early, Vito. We're supposed to get a few rounds of easy peasy picks.
It's never easy. This is the Hall of Fame.
All right. I will continue with my Sable bashing. handedly.
Good luck.
Even-handedly is what I'll say. Sable, once again, wonderful person. Wonderful business person. The iron was hot and she struck. I think similar to how we said Leilani Kai was in a women's division with 4 people. Jacqueline, Sable, Sunny, but Sunny didn't really wrestle.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm drawing a blank of 2 more women, I think says a lot. Luna was there for a minute.
Around, yeah.
Like, let's say it was a 5-women division. They brought back the title specifically to elevate Sable.
Right.
I think that's a detriment to Sable as it pertains to being in a Hall of Fame.
I'm going to disagree because I think the exact opposite. I think what Sable did was proved to everyone in the business that women could be profitable for their company. And I think about how after Sable, they were doing the Playboy shoots regularly. After Sable, more and more women were brought in. And obviously what we see in women's wrestling today is vastly different than what she was doing. But I don't know if we would have gotten there without Sable to begin with, where I love Victoria, but I think if you were to take her out in this case, I think the women's division would have still been okay.
Okay, but I think, and it's no offense to Sable, I think if there was not a Sable, there would have been a Sunny. If there was not a Sunny, there would have been somebody else's wife who looks good and the crowd gets behind for whatever reason they got behind Sable that honestly I'm still unsure by how she was presented on television at that time. That I think Victoria walked out there start to finish, knew who her character was, what her brand was, what everything was, and had a very lengthy in-ring career, and that's why she's my vote.
I am gonna you almost changed my mind, but my fear of Brock Lesnar is gonna keep me in the Sable train.
Gentlemen, your vote, Jack, you vote for Sable?
Yeah.
And Steve, you vote for Victoria?
Yes.
This is a split vote, gentlemen. I fear no man. The winner is Victoria! Victoria moves on and Sable is removed from the bracket.
And next week's guest, Brock Lesnar. Vito will be nowhere to be found.
I am here to see you, Mr. Brock Lesnar, and the final round.
Did you just turn around and lock the door before you said that?
No. Had someone else do it.
Vickie versus AJ Lee.
It's actually very fitting because I want to say season 2 of NXT, AJ Lee's pro was Vickie Guerrero. So it's very fitting these two are paired together.
Yeah.
I've been touting the benefits of Vickie Guerrero to the wrestling business. I still think the prowess of AJ Lee in the ring overshadows that.
I 100% agree. I think if I ran a wrestling company today, I'd be looking at bringing someone like Vickie Guerrero in. But I do believe, as I said before, AJ Lee was really the person in my mind that bridged that gap between what we used to know as the women's division, the Divas division, into making it the women's division, which is fantastic wrestling and a division to be taken completely seriously and not silly like bra and panty matches or things like that, but like as a legit standalone division that can compete with any other division. I think she's the one that brought that, and that's why I got to put her ahead this time.
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, your vote then is... Who was it?
AJ Lee.
AJ Lee continues to move forward. Vickie Guerrero, unfortunately, is then knocked out. Gentlemen, we are in the semifinals. The first round is Chyna versus Mccool.
I do have to air a quick correction. It was Caitlyn was Vickie Guerrero's pro in NXT, not AJ Lee. The chat was very clear with me. AJ Lee also did not win that season of NXT. Caitlyn did. Caitlyn, different Hall of Fame wish for different reasons.
Right. Again, thank you to the chat for your corrections, for keeping up with us. And make sure to leave a like if you like correcting Steve Kaufmann.
We're going to get a lot of likes if it's for people who like to correct Steve.
All the likes.
So Chyna versus Michelle Mccool. This tournament just got very interesting very quick. This is a tough pick for me. I feel like I've waffled a little bit on Michelle Mccool, going back and forth between voting for her and then voting against her. And now I feel bad that I have to talk about her again because I feel like I should not be defending her, but to her credit, she's got more title reigns than Chyna. She's got more. I think the women's division was geared around her more than Chyna ever was geared around a women's division.
30 seconds, gentlemen.
Chyna was so dominant they had to put her in another division. Because when I spaced on a name to explain Sable's competitors earlier, that was because Chyna was technically one of them, but they knew better than to put Chyna in there with Sable.
Right.
So they didn't. They brought Chyna into the mid-card, usually men's title.
Right.
Because she was so dominant in her time. Also, Chyna, if you want to play the who dat test,
right,
more people would know who Chyna is than Michelle Mccool is.
100%.
Chyna has my vote.
Gentlemen, our final votes. Jack.
Based purely on her bazooka walkout, I'm going to go with Chyna.
We've got one Chyna and Steve Kaufmann, your vote.
Also Chyna.
We've got Chyna moving on to the finals. Unfortunately, Michelle Mccool is knocked out, but we are on to our final semi-final round. Victoria versus AJ Lee.
Whew. This is a tough one. This is a match I'd like to see. Did they ever have a match? I
No.
don't think so. No. This is a match I wish we could have gotten to see. This would have been a good one. A ton of love for Victoria. I think she's great, and we've talked about her already. But again, I think I got to go AJ Lee here.
I think we're in agreement. We've kind of talked about the merit and demerit of both of these folks all the way through. I think AJ Lee as well.
Gentlemen, are we in agreement of AJ Lee?
Yes.
And that blocks out Victoria. Gentlemen, we are in the finals.
The final countdown.
Gentlemen, do we have any last words before we begin? Then we shall move forward to the final round. Chyna versus AJ Lee.
Dream match.
Absolute dream match. And I'm going to say it right now, for those of you who are with us in the chat, it's great seeing everyone give their take. And it seems to be pretty split as we go through here. Flobo saying...
Shout out to Flobo Voice in the chat.
I don't know why Flobo couldn't be here today. Maybe he's got some gig in Florida that he's dealing with. But
He will join us next week.
No, he's in Jacksonville, Florida tonight. He got flown out to do a show because he's big time in it.
Stupid jobs, paying people stupid money.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could all be that successful, right? No, so we got Chyna, we got AJ Lee. This is such a tough one because I think they both did so much for their respective divisions in their respective times. This is a coin flip. I will not flip a coin. I will make a decision, but I mean, it feels a bit like a coin flip, doesn't it?
It feels very much like a bit of a coin flip. These were very solid 1 and 2 seeds. The slight edge comes to Chyna. I also think people forget AJ Lee as an on-screen performer was so good that they based Raw around her for a good 6-month period where she was the general manager of Raw, and there was a whole thing with her and John Cena.
30 seconds,
and I
gentlemen.
think her combination of on-screen performer in that way, that she can hold multiple segments on her own. You can hand her pages of stuff. Mm-hmm. On top of also when the bell rings, she can actually go.
Yes.
Really speaks to her era versus Chyna, who bell to bell was so good in a time where there weren't that many women to work with that she almost immediately wound up working with men.
Yeah.
I give Chyna the slight edge, and her vote is mine to lose, is what I'll say.
Interesting. So, I mean, look, we're splitting hairs here, right?
Yes.
Like, at this point, anything we say is really just us trying to, like I said, split hairs. What Chyna did was so great, and we had mentioned multiple times, even going into the men's division. I kind of think that's why I want to go AJ Lee here. Because this is a women's division, a women's Hall of Fame vote. I want to see what they were able to do to help grow their own brand. And I think, as you said, AJ Lee was the star of Raw, not just of her division, not just of any other thing, but she was wrestling, she was GMing, she built a lot of what we have on her back during her run. And as you alluded to before, if she chose to keep going, as far as I know, it was purely just a choice to stop. she'd have even more. Now I know you can't say if because
Of course,
there's other things, but I think AJ Lee is the wish for me.
I've been swayed, and here's why. One, if we're talking Hall of Fame wishes, Chyna is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, great point.
Two, I spoke highly of Michelle McCool in an earlier matchup by saying she was able to rise above a larger field.
Right.
That was something that was a test Chyna did not have to pass.
Fair.
There were less women on screen in wrestling when Chyna came into wrestling. And for those two reasons, I think I'm swayed. I think the 2 seed might have it.
Gentlemen, your final votes.
Let's count down from 3. We'll both say it at the same time.
3, 2, 1.
AJ Lee.
AJ Lee is our winner, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to your winner for our Women's Hall of Fame choice of this week. Thank you very much to Jack Farmer. Thank you very much to Steve Kaufmann. Would you please both tell me and the crowd where they can find you on social media?
You guys can find me on Twitter almost exclusively. I am at Steve Kaufmann. That is KAUFMANN. I am heavily involved in the pro wrestling YouTube space. If I'm tweeting the link, chances are I'm involved.
And you can find me at Jack C. Farmer as well as at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. You can also check me out on the AEW Dynamite After Show that airs every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as well as the Raw After Show, which airs every Monday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also check me right here on the Hall of Fame snubs or wishes every week as well. So I try to be here as much as I can.
And gentlemen, if you want to find me, you can find me at Vito Scutti on Instagram and Twitter.
And let's also shout out Flobo Boyce. Thank you so much for being in the chat, buddy. You can find him at Flobo Boyce on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for joining us. That's this round. Let us know if you agree in the comments. Until next time, buzz you later.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.